let me be very clear again. The modeling that I saw now is not the modeling that I saw a week ago or 9 days ago. And 9 days, 10 days ago, what I saw was anywhere from 950 to 1,200 cases. What I saw a couple days ago, it's 6,500. And I can reassure you that if I saw 6,500 cases 10 days ago, I wouldn't be out here today saying what we're saying.
Premier Doug Ford, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, walked back previous guidelines today and lowered the province's threshold for what is considered a red zone. More regions will be moved into those red zones starting Monday. The Premier urged people to stay at home as much as possible and only leave for essential reasons. For more on this, I want to bring in Dr. Alison McGeer. She's an infectious disease specialist and joins us from Toronto. Hi, Dr. McGeer. Good to see you as always.
Nice to see you.
I was thinking back to our last conversation a few months ago, and you at the time were concerned about the trajectory of the virus in Ontario at that point. What is your sense of where things are at right now?
I think, well, I'm very glad today that the province has looked again at the numbers and is moving to greater restrictions. I think one of the things that we're learning from other countries is that once you start on a trajectory of greater numbers of cases, that the doubling time can increase very quickly, and so we do seem to be sitting very close to that tipping point, and once you go over that tipping point, you're looking at a month or 6 weeks of hospitals having to cancel surgery, of ICUs running out of beds, of a variety of things that we really want to try hard to avoid. So I think this might be the last possible moment at which we could have done it. We're still going to see many more cases than we want. We're still seeing many more long-term care outbreaks than we want. We're going to see more deaths than I think we've been hoping for in the fall. But moving now is certainly a lot better than not moving now.
When you say tipping point, like what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, remember that growth and spread of this virus is exponential, right? It's got a doubling time, which means that you go from 1 case to 2 cases to 4 cases to 8 cases to 16 cases. It's not a steady state. So once you start on an upward trend, it tends to accelerate. And if you look at a bunch of the European countries that are in trouble now, Switzerland, the Czech Republic, Belgium, if you look at what happened to Israel earlier in August when they reopened schools without careful processes in place, once you start going upward, the increase in the cases increases very quickly. And of course, the problem is that what you do today tells you what's going to happen to cases in 10 days. It tells you what's going to happen to hospital admissions in 2.5 or 3 weeks. And it tells you what's going to happen in your intensive care units in a month. So we put in restrictions today. We won't see cases in Ontario go down for at least a week or 10 days. We're not going to see hospital admissions go down for 2.5 weeks. In fact, we're going to see them go up still for a period of time. So
there's a lag, right?
Really hard about managing this.
Yeah, there's a lag. I remember you saying, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it will
and that lag is really hard because you tend to look at cases and say, it's not so bad today.
Right.
But today is not what you're worried about. It's a week from now that you're worried about.
Well, and I think what's interesting is, over the past month, there have been some restrictions in place. There was sort of an escalation in restrictions right before Thanksgiving. And you really didn't see a massive decrease in cases. Obviously, the increase could have been much greater, I would assume, but it's interesting that even with the lag time, it certainly wasn't like the curve began to flatten again.
Yeah, so a piece of this is what we're aiming for, right? Do we need the number of cases to go down, or do we need them to remain stable? And I think we were hoping that when we moved into those restrictions before Thanksgiving, that we were going to make the curve flat. Not necessarily that we go back down to a smaller number of cases, but that we could prevent the increase. And What we're seeing now is that that was not enough to prevent the increase is the problem. And so now we're having to say, yes, okay, not that those restrictions didn't work, not that we wouldn't have been on a much steeper curve without them, but that they weren't enough for keeping the caseload down.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm wondering from an almost individual perspective or an individual's interpretation. What does that mean for our own actions going forward? Like, government has used some levers. What levers do we need to pull of our own from your perspective?
So from my perspective, this is really simple. This virus thrives on people having contact with other people, and if we want to get through this with a minimum number of deaths, then and a minimum impact on the rest of everybody's lives and the economy, we need to be having contact with the least number of people that is essential to us. I think we're having trouble with the messaging around that because we don't want to say to people, don't do things or you can't do things. But the truth is that if we all do only what's essential to us, then we get very substantial control of cases. And that doesn't mean not doing anything. It just means thinking carefully about the contacts you need to have with other people for your own well-being and for your sanity, and making sure you don't go above that.
Is it putting your mindset back where it was in March and April, where I think we were all convinced, right? Like just don't broaden your circle of contacts.
Yes, this has gone on for a long time, and clearly what we did in March achieved great things, okay? I think our sense is we don't need to be as restrictive as we were in March, but that doesn't mean that we don't need to be restrictive. And it's also one of those things that benefits other people. If I happen to be one of those people who can live without a lot of outside contact, if I'm willing to live without, seeing my kids for a month, even if I don't like it, then that's a benefit to everybody else, right? Each one of us restricting our activities is a benefit to the whole population. So a piece of this is about thinking about, what I need in my life, but also what I can contribute, okay? Because some people have to go to work. Some people have to see large families. Some people have to go to hospitals. For those of us who don't, the more restrictive we are in our contacts with other people, the easier it is for people who need to be out and who need to have contact to be able to do that without getting us into trouble with rising number of cases and hospital overcrowding.
All right, Dr. McGeer, I'll leave it there. Thanks for your expertise tonight. Really appreciate it as always.
Pleasure to talk to you. Take care.
You as well. Dr. Alison McGeer joining us from Toronto. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.